Jim Justice is a well-liked governor in the state that is trending more and more red. He does have a primary opponent in Alex Mooney. He is more conservative. He is backed by the tax group.
Club for Growth.
Yeah, Club for Growth, and they're pouring a lot of money into that race. We even saw, they are doing some negative advertising, but Jim Justice does have a lot of issues, whether it comes to some of the financial issues.
His businesses, people are raising.
Coal empire that his family owns. It's really interesting because a lot of these groups are trying to look at that as negative. When you talk to a lot of conservative or Republican strategists in general, a lot of them say this stuff does not matter.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by Congressional Reporter Samantha-Jo Roth. SJ, there's goings on in West Virginia. Obviously, Congress is out in recess, but election year happens many months in advance. So Republicans think they have a really big opportunity to pick up a Senate seat in West Virginia. They have a candidate they like. Is there any, other shoe that could drop? Is there any sort of negatives for Republicans going on in that race at the moment?
Well, I think there's a lot going on in that race right now. You obviously have the current governor, Jim Justice, who is running. And Jim Justice is a well-liked governor in the state that is trending more and more red. He does have a primary opponent in Alex Mooney. He is more conservative. He is backed by the tax group.
Club for Growth.
Yeah, Club for Growth, and they're pouring a lot of money into that race. We even saw, they are doing some negative advertising, but Jim Justice does have a lot of issues, whether it comes to some of the financial issues.
His businesses, people are raising.
Coal empire that his family owns. It's really interesting because a lot of these groups are trying to look at that as negative. When you talk to a lot of conservative or Republican strategists in general, a lot of them say this stuff does not matter. Voters don't care about this stuff. That really remains to be seen. There's been just a lot of trickles that are coming out over and over. He hasn't paid his taxes. He hasn't paid this group or that group. So, it's not great, but, a lot of folks tell me that they don't think it's a deal breaker.
And I mean, they do have a couple things going for them. One, whether it's justice or not, the fact is that we don't really know if Senator Joe Manchin is running for re-election. And number two, even if he is, it'll be a presidential election year. The last two presidential elections, Donald Trump did pretty well in West Virginia.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really hard to think about a scenario in which you would see the state of West Virginia go for a president, a Republican president, and then also vote for a Democratic senator. The split ticket voting, it's just not something that we see a lot. I mean, it can happen. We've seen it happen before, but it's just a lot more difficult to see in this scenario. So that's certainly something that Manchin and his team are going to have to think about, as they weigh whether or not they're going to run. And, Republicans are really looking at this seat. They believe this should be a slam dunk, along with some of the other races. And, it's definitely getting to be a little bit more difficult than they were thinking. I'm also talking about Montana and Arizona as well. We still don't know who's running in that race, but it is looking to be very likely that it's going to be Carrie Lake, the failed gubernatorial candidate who is very controversial, who has run, embracing some of former President Trump's election conspiracies. So that is certainly something that a lot of folks here in Washington are watching. And, Republicans, a lot of them are, very frustrated with that situation, especially, having a three-way race with Sinema, now newly independent, Gallego, who is the more progressive candidate. A lot of them think that this should be a slam dunk and, are frustrated with the situation.
Wasn't the thought heading into 2024 that the National Party was going to try to play a bigger role in picking the nominees in some of the battleground state and red state Senate races?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're sort of watching that play out in some states, and other states, they are staying really far away. Another great example is Ohio. There's a huge Republican primary in that state, and the NRSC is staying out. They want this all to play out, and that's sort of what's going on in Arizona too. They realize that the bench in Arizona is not very deep, and they're just going to watch and see what happens. And a lot of folks that I've spoken to have said, if it is Kari Lake, we're not going to invest our resources there. We're going to save that for some of these more key races where the money is going to make a huge difference. And, the fact of the matter is the Senate Republicans, they don't need Arizona to win.
So it could really affect, though, the size and shape of the Senate map.
Absolutely. And so I think right now what we're seeing is, Republicans are really looking at where their resources are going to get the most traction. And I think, they're really zeroing in on West Virginia, Montana, and Ohio. Those are not, surprises. We've been talking about those all along.
Right.
But, those are the places where they're, seeing, the most momentum and the most, paying for their buck, if you will.
Sure. Thanks, SJ.
Thank you.
You can read Samantha-Jo and the rest of our political team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.